this is Mr. Pete, and we are about to start part 5 of The One and Only Bob by Katherine Applegate. We left off in part 4 with Bob, Julia, and George checking in on the park, making sure everything is okay, but the storm is coming quick and the weather is getting bad really quickly. Here we are with Bob finally getting to meet Ruby and Ivan. We wait through all of book 1, all the way up to the page that we're on now, 125. And we finally get to see Ruby and Ivan after all of this time. And of course, now we've got this storm, so let's find out what happens. Part 5, Ivan's Art. "How's it going, girl?" I call to Ruby as she stops near the moat edging the wall. "I had cantaloupe for breakfast, Uncle Bob, and it was yummy. And then I took a mud bath." She paused to take a breath. "Do you want to hear a new dog riddle, Uncle Bob?" "Of course I do," I say, and I catch Ivan's amused glance. "What kind of dog is always on time?" asks Ruby. You got me, Ruby. I'm totally baffled, befuddled, bewildered. "What kind of dog?" "Oh, a watchdog," Ruby exclaims. "Watchdog. Get it, Uncle Bob?" "Not bad, Ruby. Not bad at all," I say. "Ivan says it's going to rain buckets," idiom.
"It's raining buckets and chicken delight."
"Whoa, hey!"
says Ruby. She dips her trunk in the moat and blows bubbles. "I think Ivan is on to something there." "Did he show you his new picture?" Ruby asks. She grabs a tuft of grass and tosses it in the air. "I wish I could see it, but I can't because of that silly wall. But he told me all about it. My pal Ivan is quite the artist, just like Julia." Ivan sits up and nods toward a spot on the wall. "Another mud mural?" I ask. As any good dog knows, dirt plus water equals mud, and mud means mess, and mess means let's roll in this stuff and maybe dig a hole or 2 or 10. But for Ivan, mud plus a flat surface equals a waiting canvas.
"Oh, Ivan, bullseye. Look at that. Very nice. Good catch." The painting started where it just dawned on me that Ivan might enjoy painting or watching me paint, so I put paint down here and started smearing the paint around, and Ivan came over and I slid some underneath him, and he actually started smearing it around with his hand. All the way through. At first, he would not give the paintings back to me, but after a while, I got hit across the idea that I would like them back, and he obliged me, and then I had the idea to get them framed, and it just snowballed from there.
I crane my neck, edging it a bit farther down the top of the wall. Don't want to draw attention to myself. "Hey, nice," I say. I mean, I'm not an art guy. To me, art is a glop of spray cheese on a cheese dog with extra grated cheese on top. Still, I've always admired Ivan's work. Ivan begins. "No," I say, "don't tell me, let me guess." "You always guess wrong," Ivan says. "Not always. You thought my palm tree was a dandelion." "Art is in the eye of the beholder," I say. "You thought my blackberries were giant ants." Kenyani ambles up to join in the conversation. "And need I remind you that you thought his portrait of me was a chimpanzee with gas?" "The resemblance was striking," I say. Kenyani glares at me. She glares at me a lot. So it seems like Kenyani and Bob have this really great relationship. That's sarcasm. On the subject of chimps. Now, it's important, again, if you haven't read The One and Only Ivan and you're to this point and have heard me say this 100 times, you need to go read The One and Only Ivan because there's going to be spoilers throughout this, including this. If you go back to The One and Only Ivan, we know what Ivan thinks about chimps. Nothing good. He doesn't like being called a chimp. He doesn't like chimps. And it appears that Kenyani feels the same way. Probably I shouldn't have mentioned the chimp angle. Gorillas aren't as open-minded as dogs. A lot of them have a thing about chimps. Think they're clowns. Metaphor. But when I look at apes and gorillas, seems to me they have a lot more in common than they admit to. Dogs ain't perfect, but I'll tell you one thing where we rule: tolerance. Well, that's irony, because is he tolerant of humans? For us, a dog is a dog is a dog. I see a Great Dane, I say howdy. I run into a puggle, it's glad to meet you, how's it going? Smelled any good pee today? Go to a dog park and you'll see we are equal opportunity playful. You sniff my rear, I sniff yours. You don't see that with humans, obviously. Constantly seeing differences where none exist. All those things like skin color, dogs could care less. You think I won't hang with a Dalmatian because he's spotted or a Shar-Pei because she's wrinkled? I'm not saying I love every dog I meet. Snickers comes to mind. But I'll always give a dog the benefit of the doubt. Life is short, play is good, and there are plenty of tennis balls to go around. A very handsome dog. Hi, Aunt Kenyani, Ruby calls. Once again, Ruby, says Kenyani, I am not your aunt. I am a primate, and you, my dear, are not. More's the pity. But if Ivan is my uncle, then you have to be my aunt, Ruby declares. Ahem, says Ivan, pointing to the wall. My painting, Bob. I consider. It looks like a dog. Ruby flaps her ears. I can tell she's trying very hard to stay quiet. A very handsome dog I add, is it? It is, Ruby exclaims. It's you, Uncle Bob. Uncle Ivan told me. But who's that? I ask, pointing to another set of mud strokes. I thought you needed a companion, says Ivan. I know you must get lonely at home by yourself all day. Well, that's the sign of a good friend. He really knows him, doesn't he? It's true, but I've never mentioned that to Ivan. Guy's like a mind reader. I think Snickers and Bob would make a cute couple, says Ruby. I blink in disbelief. Bite your trunk! Ruby starts to reply, but her voice is drowned out by a sharp clap of thunder. Storm's getting close, says Kenyani. Ivan dear, come on, you know how you hate the damp. It's true. He carries around old burlap bags so he won't have to sit on wet grass. Ivan looks at me sheepishly. Good vocab word. She knows me so well. Kudzu, one of the baby gorillas, bounds over and leaps onto Ivan's back. Ivan loves all the youngsters, but Kudzu is his favorite. I think she reminds him a little of his twin sister Tag, who died when she was still a baby. If that's not foreshadowing, nothing is. Ride! Kudzu commands. Julia appears, her backpack at the ready. Bob, she calls, we need to get going. Ride now, Kudzu repeats, yanking on one of Ivan's ears. Looks like it's time to go, says Ivan. Good to see you, buddy. Stay dry, okay? Will do, big guy. I turn to Kenyani. Enchanted as always, my dear. A trumpeting noise cuts through the air. Uh-oh, says Ruby. That's Aunt Akello. Akello, the oldest of the elephant aunts, lumbers over. Come on, Ruby. Weather's getting bad. Just one more minute, Ruby pleads. Now. But I need to tell Uncle Bob one more riddle. Now, Akello repeats. Nobody ever listens to the littlest elephant, Ruby complains. You can tell me the riddle next time, kiddo, I say, winking at Akello. Ruby brightens. Okay, gotta go, or I'll be in big trouble. Love you, Uncle Bob. See you later, Uncle Ivan and Aunt Kenyani. I'm not your... Kenyani begins, but Ruby is already galloping back to her herd. The beginning. The beginning of what, I wonder? In the distance, thunder growls, long and low and not giving up. Reminds me of my stomach pre-breakfast. There's personification there and a metaphor. I test the air. Weird, something isn't right. Julia! It's George rushing over. Hurry up, you need to get inside. George has an odd scent, like he's on guard. I've only smelled it a few times on him. I look up. The clouds have turned strange shades of green and yellow and gray, clustered together like rows of fat marshmallows. Simile, imagery. It's so ugly, it's beautiful. Irony. I can't stop looking. The air goes still, like a cat before it leaps on its prey. Kenyani and Ivan and Kudzu are racing towards the gorilla villa. A fat raindrop hits my nose. It tastes wrong. How can rain taste dangerous? People are yelling, running, opening umbrellas, covering their heads with maps of the park. More drops. At the far end of the field, I can just make out Akello herding Ruby along. Another drop, a dry one, like a pebble. Hail, George says. Julia, now. He grabs her hand. Rumbling, the sky boils and swirls. Bob, Julia calls. Come on. So I want you to think about hail and what hail means. It means certain type of weather is coming. I move to leap off my perch, to run to Julia. I've done it 1,000 times, but this time I lose my footing. I never slip. I'm as nimble as Nutwit. But the rain, the hail, I let out a yelp as I land on Ivan's side of the wall, splat in the mud. Bob! Julia screams. He'll be okay, George says. I can smell Julia's fear and George's doubt as he drags her away. They're leaving Bob in the gorilla domain. So obviously the weather is pretty serious. Hail means tornadoes. Let's see what happens next. Torn apart. Noise. It's all noise. Noise that hurts. Noise like a massive truck bearing down on us. The power of its engine, the inescapable wheels, the relentless roar. Nothing to see, nothing even to smell. Just the terrible sound of the world disintegrating. No way. I'm flying. Again, he's flying. What's happening? Airborne. Not far, just into the nearby giraffe domain. Not high, just enough to buzz the top of trees. Not long, just long enough to stop breathing. But I fly. I'm not alone. Half the world seems airborne. Hyperbole. Trees, boards, bicycles, chunks of roofs, umbrellas, chairs, bits and pieces of life. It all levitates, past like some horrible magic trick. Something hits my head. A toy truck, maybe? And I yelp in pain. And I'm terrified. So scared I pee myself. And I'll be the first to admit it. You try and see how dry your underwear stays. But still, I fly. Not like in the box with my brothers and sisters. Not like with the owl. This is different. This is me, Bob the dog, spending a moment as Bob the bird. Landing. It's over. I land, hard on my rear, and slide to a stomp directly underneath Stretch, the oldest giraffe in the place. Character. The roar, and by now I've realized we're talking a real, live tornado, vanishes as quickly as it came, leaving a vacuum, a silence that hurts even more than the noise. So, we talked about tornadoes last week. And hail, of course, is the first sign of a tornado. And I know you're saying to yourself, wait a second, Mr. Pete, there's a hurricane. And remember, when we talked about tornadoes, it was as a part of hurricanes. Sometimes with hurricanes, you'll get tornadic behavior first and then later on. And you could see like the northeast quadrant of a hurricane have pretty severe tornadoes that are kind of part of that hurricane. And they got hit by one. Bad dog. And this is why I'm a bad dog. Not bad dog like I chewed your favorite slippers. Bad dog like I'm not a good representative of my species, of any species. I don't think Ivan, Ruby, Julia, are they all right? I've got to find them. That's what a hero dog would do. One of those guys on the Man's Best Friend show. Hero dogs dash into flames and dig into rubble. Hero dogs are fearless. Nope, not my style. What do? Bob, untamed, undaunted, I howl like a newborn puppy. Simile. Think about that. Is that really who Bob is? Would he do all of those things? Honest. I'm not hurt. Banged up a little, sure, but nothing major. And I don't howl for long, but it's what I do. Like I said, I ain't a saint, but at least I'm honest about my feelings. Stretch. Slowly, with some difficulty, Stretch peers down between his two front legs. His body partially shelters me from the rain. A piece of canvas has draped itself around his neck like an ugly scarf. Simile. New character. I swallow my howls. We look at each other, too stunned to form actual words. Finally, Stretch clears his throat. Hello, he says in a strangely calm voice. What kind of animal might you be, if you don't mind my asking? Dog. Didn't think you guys flew. We don't, as a rule. I pick myself up, move out from under Stretch, and take in my surroundings. The pelting rain has slowed some, and the wind has dulled. What was that? Stretch asks, trying and failing to yank the canvas off his impressive neck. Tornado, I think. I've seen tornadoes on the Weather Channel. They look like water swirling down a drain, simile. If the water were black and full of trucks and trees. They look like death. I gaze up at him. I have to crane my neck. Irony. You okay? Yep, says Stretch. But from what I can see, a lot of other folks aren't. Aardvarks. Across the way I hear something. A small squeak. Who lives over there? I ask Stretch. The Aardvark family, he replies. Lovely neighbors. Carefully I venture across Stretch's domain. The sky is dark as dusk. I hear a flutter of wings overhead. It's Mitch, the mockingbird. He's missing some feathers. Bob, he calls, settling on a fence post. Was that you I saw up there? Yep. How are things looking? Not good, lot of damage. Well, take care of yourself, I say. Likewise. He pauses to straighten a wayward feather. Little hint, by the way. Next time you fly, try flapping your paws. I make my way over a broken wooden barrier, tiptoe over some scattered glass and twisted metal, cross the paved path, and arrive at the Aardvarks. More sounds. They're coming from what looks like a demolished keeper's shed. I hesitate, not sure what to do. It's a big mess, and I'm a small guy. Also, my head hurts. I feel dazed, fuzzy. My ears are ringing. I yank off some small stray boards with my mouth. Look at that. Bob diving into the mix right after he gets hurt. For the record, small stray boards have small stray nails in them. Underneath the boards are 3 shivering aardvarks, 2 babies and a mom, with their long piggy snouts and bunny ears. You good, I ask? What was that? The mother manages to ask. Some seriously bad weather. Is it over? I consult the wind. Doubt it. Foreshadowing. You think everybody's okay? She asks. Don't know, sure hope so. And then it hits me. Ivan, Ruby, Julia, George. Look, I gotta go, I say in a strangled voice. Any part of your indoor den survive? She nods. Think so. Go there, lie low. Where's Pedro? The littlest aardvark asks. I feel my head with the front paw. A nice bump is forming. Who's Pedro? Our keeper? He'll come, I promise. Are you sure? The baby asks. I'm sure, I say, but of course, I'm lying. Sounds. The eerie quiet doesn't last. Long before the squeals and shrieks and brays and squawks of the animal kingdom crowd the air. Terror, confusion, pain. From far off comes the wailing of sirens. Car alarms blare from the parking lot. Now and then, people shout. Cries for help translate into any language, human or animal, fish or fowl. Never want to hear those again. Never, ever. We're going to stop there for part 5. But, a couple of things to consider. Bob, who immediately says, I'm not one of those man's best friend dogs. I don't dive into rubble. I don't help. I'm not thinking of anyone but myself. Immediately after he's done howling, what does he do? Again, actions speak louder than words. He runs to the aardvarks, makes sure they're okay. Then who does he remember? All the people he says he doesn't think of. Ivan, Ruby, George, Julia. He immediately begins heading over there to make sure that they're okay and is one of those dogs. He just doesn't give himself enough credit. Part 2 of this is we have just, with this chapter Sounds, dived into imagery. So if you're Mr. Pete's 4th grade, this is a great place to do a visualization, but I'm going to give you a little hint. The next page, your first page on day 6, is going to add even more to this visualization. So my hint to you, use the imagery on page 152 and the imagery on page 153 and put it into one amazing visualization. That's a gift. All right, on to day 6. I'm out.